Welcome back. Now today there was a record settlement with the Bank of America by the government, a $17 billion fine. Now of that $17 billion, $9.65 billion will go to the government, to the federal government in various states. 7 of it will go to struggling consumers, as the Wall Street Journal points out. Now, this is really quite a deal for the Bank of America, because if you remember back to the TARP settlement, that was $700 billion. And of course, that was a price of the irresponsible actions of Bank of America, of Countrywide, and many other banks. Now, of that $17 billion, notice that only $7 billion is going to go to consumers, as the Wall Street Journal points out. Just in perspective, it was originally $700 billion that taxpayers had to pay for what the banks had created. That was later reduced to a $500 billion hit against the taxpayers in the Dodd-Frank bill. Now, they go on to say, what was it that Bank of America was settling? Well, they knowingly provided credit to borrowers who could not afford loans, then sell those time-ticking bomb mortgages to unwitting investors. There you go, defrauding both sides of the ledger. In at least one instance, an underwriter at Bank of America made more than 40 attempts to win an accept rating from an internal Countrywide system that was known as CLUES, that would allow the Bank of America to make a loan according to a statement of facts signed by the U.S. and by Bank of America. Now, many of these were Countrywide issued mortgages that accrued to Bank of America, but of course Bank of America had its own issues in there. They say that in many cases they would say that when the loan would reset in 5 years, they knew there would be enormous payment shock and the borrower would not be sufficiently sophisticated to really understand the consequences. So the bank would then be dealing with a foreclosure in a potentially deflated real estate market. And that's exactly, as we all know, what happened. They defrauded the mortgage holders, they defrauded the people that they sold the mortgages to, and then when it all hit the fan, they defrauded the American taxpayer. And now here we are, years later, and they're going to get a fine of only $7 billion. I guess crime really does pay. Now look what they're doing to our cars. Of course, we have the projections that we're going to have self-driven or robotic cars or computer-driven cars in now less than 6 years. This is what it's going to look like. First, they're adding the monitoring, which is going to be used to get you out of your car. This article points out that the new Corvette will record every move that a valet driver makes. Now, it's not you that they really want to watch. It's really those bad valets that you turn your car over to. That's the way they're going to sell it to you. But listen to what they're putting into this option that you will be able to buy on your Corvette. They say, attention valet drivers, don't get frisky with a 2015 Chevy Corvette. Big Brother is watching. General Motors is offering next year's model of the famous Sport Coupe with a data recorder that captures video, audio, and driving data from the vehicle when switched into a special quote-unquote valet mode. Now, they're going to record data like speed, engine RPM, and which gears have been used, the highest level of G-forces incurred. All of this because they're afraid that, somebody might take your car on a joyride. They're also going to get a video from the point of view of the driver. Now, all this information that is going to be collected, quote unquote, on your valet, that information, that kind of black box information, is eventually going to be turned over to the government to give you real-time tickets, or it's going to be turned over to the insurance company, or it's going to be used to make it so expensive to penalize people who are actually driving their cars. They will make it impossible for anyone to be able to drive their cars because, of course, human drivers can't be trusted. Only human programmers can obviously be trusted. Now, Wired Magazine points out the inherent flaw with that. As I mentioned, in just 6 years, they're talking about having self-driving cars rapidly deployed into our society. The big hurdles are not technological, but legal. And of the legal hurdles, the biggest ones are liability. Have you thought about what's going to happen when there's an accident occurs? Because, of course, even though these things are sold to us as being perfect, as being flawless because they're coming from a computer, we all know the old adage, garbage in, garbage out. If it's got a bad programmer, anybody that's ever used any kind of computer knows that programs always come with flaws. When these flaws start to cause an accident, these vehicles are going to have to make a decision as to where they want to drive the car. Will they drive the car in a way that will spare the most number of lives? Will they arbitrage between the different cars and perhaps kill you in your car in order to save 5 people in another car that's coming at you? This is what they point out. They say that the manufacturer is going to now have a liability. Now, Wired Magazine points out where the liability comes from. It's an ethical conundrum here. They say it's generally better to harm fewer people than more, to have 1 person die instead of 5. But the car manufacturer creates liability for itself in following that rule, as sensible as it may be. Swerving the car directly results in 1 person's death. That would be an act of killing. Had it done nothing, 5 people would have died, but you would have killed them and not the car manufacturer, which in that case would merely have let them die. In other words, the manufacturer assumes some level of responsibility, of liability, when they assume control of your car. So how are these manufacturers going to reduce their liability? Well, the author points out one of the things they could do is give you user-selectable ethics settings for your cars. So maybe what you might do is give preference to the number of people in each of the cars because they're going to know that kind of information. They're also working on V2V, in other words, vehicle-to-vehicle communications. So the cars are going to be talking to each other. They're going to be able to tell each other that in this one car over here, we have 5 people, in this other one, we only have 1. The people in one car are younger than the other one, so that might be one of your ethics settings. That still doesn't take away their liability, but you start to get the idea of how dangerous it is to turn your cars over to robots, to computer software. Now they come back and they make one final statement I want to cover, and they say, well, one thing that we could do is just limit the manufacturer's liability by law like we do for vaccine makers. That's right. Vaccine makers. They're saying, we need to have the vaccines. We know that they're essential for a healthy society. We know we need to have computers controlling our cars and not drivers. So what we do is we just exempt the large companies from having any liability at all. This is a very dangerous scenario. The idea that you will have no control over your car means that anyone, especially with vehicle-to-vehicle communication, a third party could hack in and drive your car into the wall. The government could do that. The government could just drive your car to the local FEMA camp if they wish. This is going to be computer-driven, government-controlled. It's going to be used to drive everyone out of their own cars, out of driving their own cars, out of taking responsibility and being able to control their own cars. You'll be put into these cars where the ethics settings are set maybe by you, maybe by the car manufacturer, but you won't even have a steering wheel or a brake. You will just be a passive passenger. That's the way the future is looking if we don't stop this. Of course, we can stop it. Well, stay with us right after the break. We have some special updates and special reports from our reporters in the field at Ferguson, Missouri. We'll be right back.
We've experienced and heard about the benefits of Super Male Vitality. Now, the new formula has arrived. Introducing the new Super Female Vitality. I have specifically designed this formula to help the body naturally regulate itself without the use of artificial hormones. Key ingredients chosen from the highest quality sources. Secure your Super Female Vitality today from our limited stock at InfoWarsLife.com.
The facts are in. The studies are legion. Sodium fluoride and other toxic members of the fluoride family are devastating the health and cognitive ability of the American people. So why are the social engineers adding it to the water? Simple. Dumb down the host population that the parasitic technocracy is feeding on. We may not have been able to get fluoride out of the water supply yet, but we can help to get it out of our bodies. I am extremely excited to announce the exclusive InfoWars Life Fluoride Shield formulation, fusing 6 of the best documented ingredients from around the world to help the body remove not just toxic fluoride residues from the body, but a whole host of toxic substances. Let's take a stand against the globalists by blocking their poisons with Fluoride Shield. I use Fluoride Shield every day. Secure your Fluoride Shield and other pioneering formulations at InfoWarsLife.com today. Let's start cleansing our bodies now and support the InfoWar at the same time. That's InfoWarsLife.com.